don't know what else to say. This is emotional. Okay, I know I'm always emotional, but like I never get this emotional with you guys. This is a little weird. We're both a little uncomfortable right now. Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Brutally Honest. We are going to be doing a solo episode today. This is coming out a week into October, but it is being filmed in September, and September is National Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, and suicide is a major public health concern and a leading cause of death in the US. I'm going to be talking about sharing resources to help others, the warning signs for suicide, how to know to get help, and the theme for this month, for Suicide Awareness Prevention Month, is creating hope through action, so hopefully I'm going to do a little bit of that today. So guys, I've talked about this a couple of times before, that this is a very important topic in my life and in my immediate friends' lives, in my family's life. It has affected us all very deeply because of my experience with it. This is a very, very common problem in a lot of people's lives. It's very present. And I've spoken about this before in an episode, but it wasn't, what the entire episode was about. This is the first time I'm dedicating an entire video to this. I'm very open about mental health, and I try to bring as much awareness to it as possible. So I figured, because I'm releasing a video about this on my own YouTube channel, and I just thought it felt right to do a video about it on my podcast as well, because this is something that I want to bring as much awareness to as possible. And I want to share my story and hopefully help other people if they're also struggling with it. I think that it's just easier for me to talk about, and I've grown so much from it, and I've changed so much as a person. It really completely changed me as an entire being, and it made me realize a lot of things, and it made me grow a lot. It made me grow up and mature, and I think that I have a very different outlook on life than I did 10 months ago, which is pretty wild, because 10 months ago, when I was at the lowest point I had been in probably my entire life, well, definitely in my entire life, I had such a negative outlook on life. And I just thought, which is something I've learned and I take very seriously, I thought that everything that was happening to me was personal. It was a personal attack, and negative things would continue to happen to me. But I've learned that life is happening for me and not against me. And that's something that's really helped me in the long scheme of things, because I've managed to stop saying out loud, I would always say, I have the worst luck, the worst things happen to me. And I truly believe that your outlook on things, it's possible for you to manifest things into your life. And if you're always focusing on the negative, that's all you're going to see. That's all you're going to see come in. And that's what you're, putting out into the world. And I've learned that throughout the last 10 months, because I was really in a place where I was in denial and angry at the world. And I just never saw any of the good stuff. I never sat back and thought about my incredible friends that were around me, my family who dropped everything for me back in January. And that was really easy for me to overlook, because I was so focused on all the negativity that was happening in my life, which granted was very valid for me because I was very deep in my grief, and that's kind of all I saw. I don't know. I think about this a lot, and the way that, if someone has a broken bone, everyone's going to scream and run and try to fix it as soon as possible. But if it's internal, people can't see it, and if you express it, they can't see how serious it is, so they're not going to be so immediate to helping or trying to help, which is interesting to me, because at least for me, my depression and my grief and my anxiety was so crippling and so physical that, it became a thing where I couldn't do anything. I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't work. I couldn't do anything. It was very physical. I mean, I was getting sick from it. And that's something I just don't think a lot of people talk about, how serious it is. There's it's totally valid to take sick days off because of it, because it is so real and so present in everybody's lives. And no one talks about it because, unless you're actually sick physically, then people don't take it as seriously as I think they should. It's also important, I think, to know how it affects people around you. because for me it was very intense and hard for, my family and my immediate friends. The way that people handle it is very up and down and unpredictable because you never really know what it's like until you're going through it. And I understand that. But I think from my experience and just having people be there for me, having people not be there for me, losing people because of the situation, I've realized that, the best thing you could do, in my opinion, again, everybody is different, was just someone listening, like just sitting down and listening, or just existing near me at the time. Because weirdly enough, for me, I had no idea that I had even ever felt that low until I was in the hospital. Like I didn't see it coming. I had no idea. And then it happened. And then after I got out of the hospital was when I started to realize, oh my gosh, I actually did feel that low and I actually do have these thoughts and now I have to deal with them because now it's been brought to my attention. I just needed more help after I got out of the hospital than before I did, which is weird because, if you look at it like on paper, it's like, okay, she got help, she went to the hospital, she did what she was supposed to do, she gets out, she's supposed to get better. But it's not always like black and white or linear, and that's not the way things were for me. So just people existing near me and like showing me that they appreciated my existence was very important because I was very fragile, and like my viewpoint on life as a whole was very warped when I got out of the hospital because I just didn't understand really anything. Like I was very confused and conflicted and sad, and I was just very much in need of other people's validation because I didn't have enough validation within myself to be like, okay, that was a good thing. It's a good thing that you got out, and it was a good thing that you are here to like get better. I didn't have enough confidence within myself to say that. So I just needed people to say, just express to me, that they even cared. So if you do have somebody near you that's struggling with this, it doesn't need to be crazy. You also like, that doesn't go without saying that, you don't have to fix somebody or like drop everything in your life to help them. It's always going to be up to that person to want to get help and want to get better. And sometimes you have to hit rock bottom to get to that place, which is what happened in my case. But you don't need to do the craziest stuff to help. You could just simply say like, hey, I'm happy you're here. I'm happy you're in my life. Like that stuff really does make a world of a difference sometimes. When I left the hospital after I'd been 5150, I had such an out of body experience, and I was just, my entire reality was just flipped upside down because I had grown up very like, my family's Hispanic, and if there's a lot of like, you got it, you're good, you're good, you're good, you're good. Like, there isn't much awareness when it comes to mental health in like a traditional Hispanic family. Like, I had a feeling in my chest and I knew that, but it just wasn't like something we were all very aware of. So when I started to really experience anxiety and depression, I never really took it seriously until I was experiencing grief. And then it was a whole different story. And then it all kind of built up and hit me at once. So that's when I started to actually deal with my mental health. It was weird because I'd never done that before, and I'd never like really prioritized myself mentally in that way. And I still wasn't. That entire year that I was dealing with my grief, I still wasn't prioritizing my mental health. I always had this tendency to cope with things in like it's not really happening, like whatever, it's not a big deal, it's cool, it's fine. And in my head, it's like, I'll deal with it later. But later's going to eventually be your present time, and you're going to hit that wall, and you're going to reach the point where you're like, oh, now I have to deal with this. It can hit you in very different ways. For me, it was the most drastic way it could have possibly hit me. And that's when I realized, prioritizing my mental health or even just acknowledging it would have made a world of a difference for me, because I didn't know what was going on until I was in the hospital, and I didn't realize how bad it was until I got out. I felt very behind, and I felt very dumb. I was very hard on myself because I was like, this would have been avoided if you just communicated and used your words. I got out of the hospital and I had to acknowledge all of the feelings I was having, and I had to because I was so out of body and I was just so, like, I don't even know how to describe the way I felt. I just didn't feel like me at all. So I had to like get myself back into my body and bring myself back to reality and teach myself how to deal with all of these emotions that had just been brought to my attention that I even had these emotions. And now I had to figure out how to sort them out in my brain and deal with them in a healthy way and not with unhealthy coping mechanisms, which I was leaning into at the time. And to be alone and deal with them, because I was so codependent on people, and that's just not a realistic way to live, because at the end of the day, you are going to be alone for a lot of your life, because it's you. You're your own person. You're your own best friend. Like, you have to have your own back. And it's scary to realize and to like deal with, or to have someone that's dealing with this, because you realize they don't have their own back. And like, that's a scary thought to have. Even if you're going through it or someone you love is going through it, that's pretty terrifying. At the end of the day, I got out and I was like, you have to get better now. There's like no yes or no here. Like, you have to get better because this can't happen again. And I had to teach myself how to do that. Now let's take a quick break to hear a word from our sponsors today at HelloFresh. A crazy packed schedule can make it easy to fall into a rut when it comes to preparing dinner, or worse, rely on takeout every day. But HelloFresh does all the shopping and meal planning for you, with fresh ingredients that arrive at your doorstep, pre-portioned and ready to cook, along with step-by-step visual recipe cards. Even though I've been crazy busy this fall, I can count on HelloFresh to help me make home-cooked meals without ever having to step foot in a grocery store. With their quick and easy options ready in 15 minutes or less, plus over 40 recipes to choose from each week, I'm literally never bored and constantly thinking of cool new recipes to try. Their fall flavors lineup is truly unmatched. I'm obsessed with their apple cider cake with caramel sauce and their mini pumpkin cheesecakes, and when it comes to savory options, I love their barbecue pulled pork nachos. HelloFresh lets you have it all, free time and fresh and tasty meals with vegan and protein smart options, so I can plan my cozy fall nights without any stress. Go to HelloFresh.com/50brutallyhonest and use code 50brutallyhonest for 50% off plus free shipping. That's HelloFresh.com/50brutallyhonest with the code 50brutallyhonest for 50% off plus free shipping. Come experience why HelloFresh is America's #1 meal kit. Now onto the show. So that is a lot of my own personal experience, but I want to, bring awareness to some warning signs that you could look out for. If someone around you is exhibiting this, if this is something you're worried about, you can look out for these. Definitely, and this actually directly happened with me, is wanting to sleep all the time. And that was something that I really, really, really struggled with. I was sleeping for maybe 70% of the day. I was never awake. And in my head, that was my way of like avoiding my life without having to do anything drastic. Like, that was my way of just not having to be conscious and like make conscious decisions. And that was something that everybody in my life was very worried about, because I was sleeping so much, and I would sleep pretty early and I would wake up pretty late. Like, I'm talking 5 p.m. late. That's something to look out for sure, now that we're talking about it, because that was pretty bad. I had that problem for a while. I just was very neglectful of myself and my well-being. My eating patterns were terrible. I was definitely not eating enough. I was sleeping too much. I had very bad coping mechanisms at the time. And I was very negative about everything. I mean, I would speak negatively about everything. This was like the last couple months leading up to my attempt. But I don't know. I had a really bad tendency to like make jokes about things and not. So like, I would say things that could have been taken seriously, but I would make jokes about it after. And then it was like, haha, like it wasn't, she's kidding. I was just very neglectful of myself, and I wasn't taking care of myself at all. And I was prioritizing everybody else in my life instead of myself. And I was that friend that kind of pulled things out of you, and I just wanted everybody to confide in me, and I wanted to help everybody. And I now, looking back at it, realize that that was my way of like neglecting myself, because if I was so busy dealing with everybody else and like helping everybody else, then I wouldn't have to deal with my own issues and I wouldn't have to help myself. So that was like kind of my easy way out. All of those things were very, looking back at it now, clear signs of how bad I was getting. And I guess I just never really, I never really took it seriously until I had to, until I ran straight into the wall and I had to take it seriously. I want to talk about suicide versus suicidal, because in my experience, as well as like I've done research on this, I've seen this a lot. Like people have spoken about this, and I wanted to touch on it. Is when someone has committed suicide, it's interesting to see how many people are empathetic. They're there, they're present, they're showing up, they're speaking about it and expressing their feelings about it. Versus when someone is suicidal, it's scary and unfamiliar, and it makes people run. People don't want to be a part of it. It makes them uncomfortable because they're not familiar with it. That's interesting because this month is about prevention, suicide prevention awareness month. So it's not about putting a band-aid on the problem. Like, you have to get to the root of it and try to prevent it instead of showing up once it's already happened. Again, hey, I'm not like sitting here being like, if you don't do this, this, and that, you suck. I'm just trying to have an open conversation about it because this is a very present issue and people don't talk about it. I understand how uncomfortable it is and how unfamiliar it is. It's scary. It is a very scary topic, and it scared the shit out of most of the people in my life when it happened. I get it. I do. But that's also why I want to talk about it, because as someone that's experienced it, I feel like I know now a couple of things that I didn't before, and I want to share it because there's so many things that people just don't talk about when it comes to this, and I think it would be helpful if people did. So that's why I'm pretty open about it now, because, that shit sucked. Like, it really sucked. And there was a lot of things that I wish I could go back and change and like be vocal about, be open about, because I think it would have helped a lot of people in my life, and it would have helped me a lot. So that's why I'm not shaming anybody. I'm just trying to give some advice and some pointers, because if this is something you are struggling with, this might help you out a little bit. I don't know. I had a hard time when I got out of the hospital. It was really tough because I had a lot of things change in my life. Everything changed in my life. The people that were around me changed. My mom moved in with me because I needed her, obviously. My work life changed. Everything changed. And that's scary. I've spoken on this podcast so many times about how much I don't like change. And, I went into the hospital one way and left, and everything in my life had changed. And that was really hard. And it sucked, but it made me grow a lot. It made me grow up, and it made me mature. And now I'm just happy I'm able to talk about it with you guys and hopefully help somebody. Again, this is all personal experience, take it or leave it. This is just what I've been through. Now that I'm at a point in my life where I have friends that, they don't like actively like push me to talk about everything that had happened. But once I do, they just sit back and they listen, and it helps. And it means a lot to me because, man, I had some experiences when I got out of the hospital. I had people, making fun of my attempt. I had people doing some pretty wild things that I obviously didn't see coming when I went into the hospital, and it sucked. And I guess I just urge people to be very empathetic and not to hold people's mental health against them, because I think that's like very crazy to me that people even do that. And it's so common. It's really common and kind of scary because people think it's like, I don't know. I don't think people realize how serious things can get, and like, it's real life. It's not a joke or anything. It's not something to poke fun at. And just encourage people to be empathetic and sympathetic towards everybody around them. Just spread kindness, because there's really no reason not to at all. There's no reason to be mean or to hold things against people and like especially if it's something that they struggle with that they can't control, like their mental health. I don't know, just be kind to everybody, because there's really, like, that's really all you can do. That is what life is all about, is loving people and receiving love. So now let's take a minute to hear from Nuuly. Fall is here, and I'm excited to put together some amazing outfits with the help of Nuuly. Nuuly is a subscription clothing rental service that's all about helping you have fun and get creative with your style. Renting from Nuuly lets me bring super cute fall pieces into my wardrobe, like tailored blazers, chunky knits, and formal dresses, without dropping serious cash. For just $98 a month, you can get outfits for every occasion and choose from 6 styles each month based on the event, and get free access to thousands of styles from more than 400 brands. From party dresses to premium denim and one-of-a-kind vintage pieces. Nuuly has labels like Free People, Selkie, Farm Rio, Anthropologie, a Loki, Madewell, and a Goldie, and inclusive sizing up to 5 times, as well as petite plus maternity. With fast free shipping and returns, as well as their professional cleaning in their state-of-the-art laundry facility, Nuuly has thought of it all. And you always have the option to buy something if you really love it, sometimes up to 70% off. Orders are shipped in recycled, recyclable, and reusable totes with no plastic packaging. Nuuly gives you everything you need to get inspired, get creative, and explore your style without making commitments. Nuuly is a great value at $98 a month for any 6 styles, but right now you can get $20 off your first month of Nuuly when you sign up with the code BrutallyHonest20. Just go to nuuly.com, that's Nuuly with 2 U's, and enter the code BrutallyHonest20 and sign up to get $20 off your first month. Nuuly with 2 U's with the code BrutallyHonest20. Nuuly subscription clothing rental. Change your clothes. Sorry guys, I have my phone out because I did make some bulletin points because I need to collect my thoughts. And when I talk about this, I get very flustered. Like, very flustered. I'm not entirely... I don't know, guys. I'm doing my best. But I want to talk about a couple of things you could do if you're struggling with suicidal ideations, or if you know somebody or think that somebody around you is struggling. These are a couple things you could do. First of all, you could talk about your feelings, which, guys, trust me, I get it. It's so difficult. I mean, I'm stuttering right now talking about my feelings. I get it. It's hard, but it is very crazy and overlooked how powerful the word help is. It'll work. It'll work, and someone will help you if you ask for it. And I learned that the hard way. But I have so many people in my life that love me and would love to be there for me and hear me talk and help me. So just reach out. I promise you someone in your life loves you and wants to help you. Also, if you have somebody that you think is struggling and you don't know how to handle it, you ask for help and someone else will help you. Help them. Call a suicide hotline, which I did multiple times. I did this multiple times, and I did this after my attempt. And you know what? It helped me a lot. So I know you hear it all the time. Call a hotline. I feel like people don't take this very seriously, but it's there. It's a resource for a reason, and it is there for you. And I used it. You can call the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline at 998 for 24/7 support. Or if you don't want to call someone and you just want to text someone and be connected to a counselor, you can text HOME to 741-741. I think one of my last tips for you guys is to reach out to a doctor. I know therapy can be pretty scary, but it has helped me a lot, and it has helped so many people in my life so much to talk to somebody and get advice and get help. I mean, communication is key, guys. That is real. Sometimes it's hard to talk to your immediate people, like the closest people in your life. So talking to a therapist can be very helpful. Again, if you are struggling, you can call 988, or if you don't want to talk to someone, you can text 741-741 to get connected to a counselor. All right, guys, that is it for this week's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you for hearing me out if you stayed the whole time. I hope this helped anybody that needs help, and thank you guys, because honestly, I am so grateful to even be able to talk about this with you guys. And it makes me very emotional. But, 10 months ago, I didn't really think that I would even be here and be able to talk to you guys about this. So I am just very grateful and honored to be able to share my story with you guys, give advice to you guys, and, have you guys listen to me. It means the world to me. So thank you. And, my DMs are open. My comments are open. You're always welcome to reach out to me. And if you want to watch video format of this podcast, you can subscribe to Past Your Bedtime's YouTube channel, or you can listen to this on all streaming platforms. I know it's October, but even though the month is over, I think it's very important to continue to talk about this, which is why I'm always talking about it. And remember that this month's theme was creating hope through action. So if you see something or if you feel something, take action. All right, I love you guys so much, and I will see you next week. Bye.